In a world which needed you, my wish for you is that you continue. Continue to be who and how you are to astonish a mean world with your acts of kindness. Continue to allow humor to lighten the burden of your tender heart. Continue in a society dark with cruelty to let people hear the grandeur of God in the peals of your laughter. Continue to remind the people that each is as good as the other and that no one is beneath or above you. Continue to let gratitude be the pillow upon which you kneel to say your nightly prayer, and let faith be the bridge you build to overcome evil and welcome good. Continue to ignore no vision which comes to enlarge your range and increase your spirit. Continue to dare to love deeply and risk everything for the good thing. Continue to float happily in the sea of infinite substance which sets aside richness for you before you had a name. Continue, and by doing so, you and your work will be able to continue eternally. And now please rise in body and spirit as you're able. As we do our morning hymn, I will lift my voice.
When I lift my voice, let it be in song, a defiant note in the face of wrong. I won't rise alone, we'll be side by side, 'cause we know that love is always justified. When they try to divide us, it will only unite us. I lift my voice. When I lift my voice, let it be for good. Let me care as much as I know I should. When we lift our voice, may we all feel peace. We sing harmony to show our love for thee. When they try to divide us, it will only unite us. I lift my voice. When I lift my voice, let it be with love. Let it sing out loud. Let it ring above. We have power to sing for those in need. With a caring deed, let us plant a seed. When they try to divide us, it will only unite us. I lift my voice. When I lift my voice, let it find your heart. Let it carry us, never tear apart. We will rise as one to the end of time. And you know that I will always be your guide. When they try to divide us, it will only unite us. I lift my voice.
Good morning. And welcome to the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge. My name is Reverend Chris Long, and I am delighted almost every day, not every day because that would be a lie. I am delighted to be your minister of congregational life. You got to tell the truth. I went to a book reading this weekend. The book was titled, and I'm not promoting anybody's book, but it was titled, Get Honest or Die Lying. What? Okay, my pronouns of choice are he, him, his. If you're visiting us for the first time, good morning and welcome to you. We are glad you're here. Please do come again and again to see if this may become your sacred community of hope. And do join members and friends of the congregation in the reception area for refreshments. And if you feel like you want to chat some more about this church, you can go into our conversation corner, which is across the way in our fellowship hall after you've grabbed your delights for after the service. To those joining us online, good morning and welcome to you too. Please say hello in the chat box because I sometimes take the time to read them when I have an extra minute, and I try to connect in those ways as well. We have quite a few announcements this morning. If you noticed when you came in, we are holding our quarterly blood drive, and as you may or may not know, Mrs. Joanne Freiling has been shepherding that program with Our Lady of the Lake, along with Beverly Wilson, who's away today. So we have Maddie Kelly that's sitting out, and I hear they have cookies and chips on the way out if you give. I don't know if you also have heard this, but blood supplies in this area are desperately low. So if you can give blood, please do. Also, during middle hour, we're going to be having our emphasis from our social justice sub-team on voting, who will be giving you all kinds of direct ways to get involved. How many days do we have until the November 5th election? No. I'm talking about they're going to have special voting out here in the breezeway. I got this. I wrote it down. We got folks talking, and they're talking about the other things. It's so much going on here. Folks are popping off. They're popping off. Okay. So please, and I had to learn from experience, I have voted since I arrived in July of 2022, and I went to go vote at Betty Powers' suggestion, and my name was moved to inactive. So I had to go and re-register, right? I live in an all-black African-American community apartment complex, and my name was moved to inactive, and I voted every chance I've gotten here. I ain't making up no stories, but you have to go. If you don't, go to GEAUX vote, go vote. So come to the vote table that's going to be out there, learn some ways that we are really actively involved and joining our efforts with Together Baton Rouge, and the denomination stuff is happening, and I don't know if y'all catching the wave of this election, no matter who you vote for, stuff is popping off, amen? During middle hour today, we have Faith and Practice is off this week, and for those of you who are looking for the Branches Sampler, that's going to be, I think it's next weekend and not today. So go to the Branches Sampler if you've ever been interested in small group ministries. We have 17 groups that are meeting, and you could be a part of the 18th with hopes of getting to be 20 or 25 groups in the coming weeks. In our social justice Faith in Action, room 7, we will have our social justice sub-team on reproductive justice that's looking at intersectionality of reproductive justice and racism and environmental justice. All of that stuff is happening during our reproductive justice in room 7. Pre-K is in room 2, grades 1 through 5 are in room 3, and youth group in room 1. Y'all know what's happening in October at y'all's church? A whole lot. Ride the wave with me. On Sunday the 20th, we'll have, in the evening that day, we'll have Leslie Runnels, who's the most recent intern minister who went through all of the processes for credentialing. She will be ordained at 5 p.m. with the church in New Orleans, and many of us are going down caravanning, if you will, to take a part of one of the most sacred traditions as Unitarian Universalists. Also on that morning, we will be welcoming 16 new members. Let's give it up for 16 new members. And if you're still considering joining, there's still time. You can see our membership chair, or anybody on the membership team. Membership chair is Donna Yulverton. So please do, and there's still time to join between now and then and be acknowledged on that occasion. On the 19th, I got special flyers. On the 19th, we're having our Queer Fete, the first annual Queer Fete, and how we're doing tickets for that event is through Eventbrite. So you have to go on, get the link to Eventbrite and register, and it's $0 to $50 or $0 to $500, whatever you want to give to bring in. It's a fundraiser for our church, but also highlighting the artistry of queer, largely UU ministers who will be doing the main entertainment, but we'll have all kinds of events that are happening through that time. So go to Eventbrite to register for Queer Fete. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay, so that's the 19th. And going backwards to October 6th. Raise your hand if you'd like to volunteer, would have more time, you would volunteer, and you come to this church and you volunteer. Raise your hand. There should be all the hands are raising, because on the 6th, we're going to be acknowledging on that Sunday, it's titled Pursue Your Passions, and we'll be honoring our volunteers, and we have ways that everybody that's a part of this church is volunteering in some way, whether you know it or not. So come on the 6th, and we're going to be sharing some honoring of volunteers and the sacredness of doing that work. Going backwards, October 5th, we hope to end our stewardship drive on that night. How are we going to register for that? Where are you going to go to register for the October 5th? With the jewelry sale, with the art sale, with the ice cream social? Say Eventbrite, Reverend Chris. So there's a link that you go to register. We're doing something new with Eventbrite so we can have better ways of calculating and managing how the funds are accumulated to that. So as we may know, we're going to have an ice cream social that afternoon. The jewelry is the morning and throughout the day. Today is the last day to bring in your jewelry or your art to prepare for the jewelry and art sale. And I contributed some jewelry and art just yesterday that's out there. So today is the last day for contributing, and then we're going to have that sale on the 5th. And in that evening, the ice cream social, then Reverend Emeritus Dr. Steve Crump will be pulling together a jazz evening that you won't want to miss. Eventbrite.com. Backing up, stewardship drive. I said that already. Next weekend, we're going to have our climate justice revival along with many, many Unitarian churches throughout the country. And the revival being, it's going to be energetic, it's going to be about discussion about climate issues related to things that are happening here in Baton Rouge and in Louisiana and needing your input. So there'll be a light lunch. Also go on, the QR code is out in the reception area that you can register for that, only to ensure we have enough food for the 900 people that are coming. We can wish, if we don't talk about it, it'll never happen. So look for the QR code to register for that. And this Thursday, both the Interfaith Federation breakfast that was scheduled during the most recent hurricane has been changed to this Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m., and more details are on our website about that specifically. On the evening of this coming Thursday, we have Together Baton Rouge, which is having its quarterly meal that we're invited to share what they're doing as they're preparing specifically for the voting issues that are here. And we have members and have been involved with Together Baton Rouge for all of these years. So we have to, if you ain't ready, got to get ready, because the election is coming, right? Right? Okay. Thank you all so much for taking in all of this information. There is a lot going on here that needs your involvement as sustainably as you can. Again, good morning. Good morning. And dear ones, we have 2 more weeks of the stewardship drive. Woo! And if you've been paying attention to our thermometer, guess how much we've raised this week? Well, not only, how much we've raised up till today. Let's say it better that way. Guess how much? Yes, you're correct. $296,904. Woo! And each week, we are inviting a member of the congregation to come and share a testimonial regarding why they pledged to the works of this church. Today, we have Jeff Gallagher, who's coming forward to share his testimony. Let's give it up for Jeff.
Thank you, Reverend Chris, and good morning. I am a Unitarian Universalist cliché. An immigrant from another faith tradition, the mainline Protestant tradition that my parents initially bequeathed to me. They were politically and outspokenly liberal, and they persisted with regular church attendance even as they regularly criticized ecclesiastical authorities. They gave me the church habit, and they modeled a questioning approach to religion. After college, I moved from my home state of Washington State to Nebraska for my first professional job. Far from family, I sought community and the religious tradition of my childhood, and I engaged deeply. It gave me the human interaction I craved. Sunday school teacher, board of deacons, board of elders, member of a pastor search committee, choir. Liz and I were married there. But the creed became increasingly difficult, or the creed I'd questioned since my teen years had become harder to abide. And especially these 7 words from the Apostles' Creed. On the 3rd day, he rose again. So, in time, I remained silent as the congregation spoke those 7 words. Later, I paused too for the creed's reference to the Trinity. I then omitted more and more until I spoke none of it. It was a silly exercise. Worse, I felt dishonest to myself and to others. In refusing to speak the creed, I seemed to let myself off on a technicality, and that felt icky. But in standing alongside others as they spoke, I felt sleazy, as if being clever or sly, speak the truth or die lying. Ha! Look at me, look what I'm getting away with, or please don't look, because I don't want to be seen disrespecting this tradition's foundational belief. I needed community. I no longer wanted to lie to myself or others to get it. Liz and I have moved a lot, 6 times. Our first move conveniently took us out of the church where I'd learned to practice, creedal deceit. We'd been mostly unchurched for several years when in 2005 we moved again to Rockford, Illinois. By then, our 2 daughters had joined us, and we again sought church community, mostly for them. They were in 2nd grade and kindergarten. We'd never heard of Unitarian Universalism, but Rockford had a UU church, and we somehow found it. A congregation of 450 members with a minister who preached with Baptist fervor about contemporary social problems. We joined. Our daughters participated in religious education. I sang in the choir. Later, we were members of a Unitarian Universalist church in North Carolina where our daughters participated in OWL classes. And I sang in the choir. Then in 2019, on the last Friday of April, I moved to Baton Rouge for a job. I moved ahead of Liz, and I was lonely and lost, emotionally lost, and actually lost in this crazy town where street names change willy-nilly, sometimes multiple times. So 2 days after washing up in this South Louisiana swamp on the very cusp of summer, I came to church here, to the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge, and I've been here since. Choir, branches, preacher pack, song leader, and more. Thank you. UCBR is one of my pillars. I'm here for community, that is you. For inspiration, for intellectual growth, for service, for music, for fun, for all that happens here that helps me live into my better, best self. Listen, we all know my task here this morning. It's to encourage you to pledge to support the church financially in 2025, to submit a pledge card telling the pledge team, the stewardship team, and the board of trustees how much money you can commit to the church, or to submit a digital pledge through the church website. The money conversation is uncomfortable and necessary. Necessary to pay for the building, the staff, the programming, the service to members, the outreach into our broader community. It's this simple. UCBR can't operate financially on wishes, on pleasant thoughts, good intentions, hopes, prayers, winks, thunderclaps, or invocations to the spirit of life, Gaia, or the mysteries of the universe. That ineffable something about UCBR that moves you, whatever it is, human connection, spirit, holiness, good feeling, intellectual depth, emotional comfort, whatever it is for you, it needs our financial support if it is to survive. I pledge every year. This year, as I do when I can, I increased my pledge. I encourage you to join me in pledging if you feel comfortable doing so, and if you can, in increasing your pledge. No amount is too little. Any pledge will help. I started by noting I'm a Unitarian Universalist cliche. You know, I don't mind. Because cliches spring from the common and familiar. And in a UU context, the cliche that many of us have come from other faith traditions means that we have chosen this one. Chosen a people where diversity of religious belief is welcomed, where humanists and Christians and pagans and Muslims and atheists and Buddhists and Jews and those of us still figuring it out may coexist. Chosen a tradition that places the onus on each person to find a spiritual path and to assertively respect others as they find theirs. Chosen religious and spiritual practices rooted in service, that is, in building a better world here, now, today. Chosen this oasis of love over division, love over exclusion, love over hate. Chosen simply love. I choose Unitarian Universalism. I choose this church. That's why I'm here. That's why I pledge. Thank you.
When we gather, we take pause to breathe as a sacred community held together by our values and our commitments to each other, and to dance into the joys and struggles of life. We do this through collective silence, meditation, prayer. This morning's prayer. Spirit of life, universe, Gaia, God. As always in our time of prayer together, we take pause to honor the Homa and Bayagula peoples whose lands we now inhabit. With so much going on in our personal and collective lives, we know there are those among us who are struggling with physical or mental health issues, preparing for the passing of a loved one. Know that we are here for you as a church, and please, please do reach out to us so you don't have to carry any of it alone. Friends, even still, let us pause to give thanks for what is good, even through harder times. Globally, let us hold in our hearts the floods happening today in Japan, Poland, parts of the Czech Republic, and elsewhere. Just yesterday, while listening to NPR driving from New Orleans back to Baton Rouge, I heard the near famine conditions in Zimbabwe and other parts of South Africa due to the lack of rains and the other drought conditions. As you may know, they were already experiencing overwhelming food shortages. We pray for ease there soon. And with all of the wars and now the uprisings between Israel and Lebanon, there must be a better way. We pray for an end to all of these wars. As we continue to settle into this hour of worship, may we find time to breathe, find a few moments of peace, and let go of what may be troubling us, even if just for this hour. Ashe, Shalom, Salam, blessed be, may it be so, and Amen. The sharing of stones ritual here at the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge is a time in our service where we take pause to come forth to share the stones as we honor the joys and sorrows of our lives with this community. Visitors are always welcome to take part in this ritual. Those who gather are also invited to sign cards for members of the church at our congregational caring table that's also out here in our reception area. We have 2 cards to sign for today. One of the cards is for Gary Jinks, who had knee replacement and repair surgery earlier this week, and he's home from that. Our next card is for Peggy Hunt, who has been moved into palliative care. We hold her, Joan, and their family in our hearts. Those who would like to take part in this ritual, please come forth, lining up on the east or west wall of the sanctuary or up the center aisle if that works better for you. Online, please provide your stone in our chat. Thank you. Our sharing of stones ritual begins. our chalice lighting words. Let us say together our chalice lighting words. With hope to make this a better world, we light this flame. Its light is a symbol of the power of love.
From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, through every land, by every tongue.
Of special note today, we have one of our preacher pack that was mentioned earlier. We have Cynthia Bryant, who's going to be leading in our service this morning. Let's give it up to Cynthia.
The devil finds work. For I have seen the devil by day and night, and have seen him in you and in me, in the eyes of the cop and the sheriff and the deputy, the landlord, the housewife, the football player, in the eyes of some junkies, the eyes of some preachers, eyes of some governors, presidents, wardens, in the eyes of some orphans, the eyes of my father, in my mirror. It is that moment when no other human being is real for you, nor are you real for yourself. This devil has no need of any dogma, though he can use them all. Nor does he need a historical justification, history being so largely his invention. The devil does not levitate beds or fool around with little girls. We do.
Like this, yes, okay. Good morning, y'all. Well, I took the title of my sermon from the wonderful James Baldwin because it works so well. This is the 100th anniversary of his birth, and I had to give him his props. So I'll begin here. I was first introduced to the devil sometime in the late winter of 1974. I can't remember the particulars of this introduction, but the experience has remained with me. I saw the devil enter the body of a 12-year-old girl that had been living the high life with her mother. I was only 3, but I can remember flashes of the house, the little girl's room, the priest at the end of a really long, strangely long stairway, and the mangled face on a little girl's spinning head. The Exorcist is the one movie I simply cannot watch. Clearly, I was traumatized, but I have gone on to watch and enjoy many more of these devil movies over the years. The Omen, Devil, The Devil's Advocate, The Witches of Eastwick, and Constantine. Y'all seen them. You've seen the movies. Okay. These are just a few of my favorites. Nevertheless, for reasons I cannot explain, and my husband is always laughing at me about this, though he can't watch Jason movies or the Halloween movies either, so, you know. Nevertheless, even now, 50 years later, I cannot watch The Exorcist. And I had no business seeing that movie at 3 years old anyway. I know this. My mother didn't, but I know. But I'm wondering if that early introduction and my perpetual response to it sparked a lifetime of broader interests in goodness and evil, in spirituality, religions, sacred words, and sacred works. I started on this journey a long time ago, and I've told y'all my story. I had no church family growing up. All my friends did, though, and as I've indicated before, I always envied them. When I moved to Baton Rouge, most of my college friends, my work colleagues, and my chosen church community, because I did choose one, were clear about their faith, their God, and how to handle Satan. The frequent references made to Satan in the songs we sang were always positioned within the context of how God or God's children possess the power to beat back the devil, place him under their feet, and fight with a confidence that would serve to prevent this evil force from taking up too much space in their lives. There was no fear, only promises of God's power. We sang or listened to gospel lyrics proclaiming that God has not given us the spirit of fear. The Lord has given us power. Or prayer changes things. Or God will protect you so that old devil can do you no harm. And of course, Satan, we're going to tear your kingdom down. We would hear testimonies of how one overcame past life problems, addictions, and just overall bad behavior way back when the devil was having his way with them. Never once, though, did I perceive that one's battle with the devil could not be victorious if fought with the appropriate amount of faith and spiritual deftness. I have to say that in light of all that Black people in America have historically endured, such a belief has always struck me as perplexing at times. For years, I wondered why Black people, or any people that were forced to take on a religion of their oppressors, could so deeply embrace it. To make things even more interesting, there's a clear disconnect between the depictions of the devil in prose, plays, and films, and the concerns of the church folk that I knew. I asked a friend who attended a Baptist church growing up, now a UU, why that might be. She explained that there is no fear, because the evil that Black people have had to avoid, pray away, and truly be fearful of paled in comparison to the foolishness presented as evil. James Baldwin, in a lesser-known essay called "The Devil Finds Work," provides a similar response as he criticizes what he calls the mindless and hysterical banality of such depictions. He writes, "The Americans should surely know more about evil than that. If they pretend otherwise, they are lying. And any man, not only Blacks, many others, including white children, can call them on this lie. He who has been treated as the devil recognizes the devil when they meet." So here, Baldwin appears to pull the devil out of the realm of fantasy and into the devastating realities that he had experienced as a Black man in America. But what is the lie that he's referencing? And if called on it, what would be the outcome? Please rise in body or spirit for our first hymn, "Over My Head."
Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. There must be a God somewhere. Over my head, I hear singing in the air. Over my head, I hear singing in the air. Over my head, I hear singing in the air. There must be a God somewhere. Over my head, I see trouble in the air. Over my head, I see trouble in the air. Over my head, I see trouble in the air. There must be a God somewhere. Take it on home. Over my head, I feel gladness in the air. Over my head, I hear gladness must be a God somewhere.
Satan in America, the devil we know. A culture gets the devil it deserves. American ideas about the nature of evil and its own response to collusion with evil emerged in the thematic elements of the American Satan. The rhetoric of newness and innocence has surrounded the United States from the beginning. So has the shadow side of this tradition, in which the American nation itself is a kind of fallen angel. American historical experience began with the rhetoric of democracy and equality, but developed in the enslavement of 4 million Black people in the first century of its existence, the brutal subjugation of its native people, and a 20th century marked by a growing love of militarism, imperial expansion, and by the standards of the developed world, an extraordinarily violent civic nature. The story of Satan, the angel who became a monster, expresses the contrast between the American promise and the American historical reality.
So when I was talking to Nathan about this particular service, I said that I wanted to give some background as I have come to understand it. So while preparing for the service, I learned a great deal about how the image, supposed works, and definite uses of Satan have changed over time. Such changes had less to do with Jesus or God's will than with the interests and the will of men in power at the time of the writings or the writings selected. For most of us in the Western world, the concept begins in the worlds of the Bible. What is interesting is that in the Old Testament, there are very few references to Satan, and when there are, it is presented, he, whatever it is presented as a co-worker in God's kingdom, checking in and out as if summoned by the head divinity in charge. In her book, The Origins of Satan, renowned historian of religion, Elaine Pagels, explains that in the Hebrew Bible, Satan is not necessarily evil, much less opposed to God. On the contrary, he appears in the book of Numbers and in Job as one of God's obedient servants, a messenger or an angel. Personally, I appreciate learning this because it gave me another explanation for I already told y'all why the serpent in the Garden of Eden could not have been the evil entity promoted across the centuries, but that was last year, a different sermon. Over time, the idea of Satan as God's diametrical adversary takes on greater prominence in the New Testament. No longer is the devil working for or with God. In the now of the New Testament, Satan works against God with malicious intent and is hell-bent on the corruption, if not the destruction, of humanity. Jesus, the Christ, is presented as the only human being in the universe powerful enough to withstand Satan's trickery and wiles. Pagels goes on to explain that this is the result of 6th century writers who boldly employed mythological imagery lifted from the Hebrew Bible to characterize their own struggle against their own brothers that had adopted the ways of the oppressor. The Satan, she writes, is not an animal or a monster, but one of God's angels, a being of intelligence and status, and us who became one of them. And so the stories began and continued. An angel reference in Isaiah of a day star that fell to earth for trying to lodge a coup against God becomes the story of the light bearer, translated to Lucifer in Latin and transformed into the central character of John Milton's Paradise Lost as a beautiful but prideful leader of the rebellious fallen angels that tried unsuccessfully to box with God and instead found himself flung from God's presence for eternity. I don't have this in here, but I have to tell you. I asked one of that same friend from the Southern Baptist Church, what did she think about the devil? And she said, oh yeah, the devil was like the first community organizer. I thought that was great. But anyway, I had to throw that in there. Paradise Lost, with its expose on Adam, Eve, and Satan, did more to shape the concept of Satan within the Western world than the Bible ever has. Thus, the concept of Satan changes over the centuries because it's such a useful tool, from a servant of God to the primary adversary of God. And interestingly, once the Bible becomes the handmaiden of conquerors, Satan becomes a servant yet again, a tool to justify colonization, imperialism, transatlantic slavery. Eventually, the stories of Satan morph again in the Americas into one of the central tenets of America's pro-slavery arguments. Y'all heard of these, I'm sure. That is, that Africans are the descendants of Noah's evil son, Ham, who looked at his drunk daddy naked, and with a complexion that reflects the mark of the murderous Cain. They are outside of God's grace and people to be both contained and feared. When I have taught about the origins of Africans in America, how they got here, and what happened as a profitable but hateful body and soul-destroying enterprise unfolded and unfolds, I am always struck by the irony of it all.
One of the many ways we as a church continue to be generous and with humility is that we share 1/2 of each month's offerings with a local organization that is extending our mission into the community in ways we simply cannot. This month, our collected offering will continue to be shared with the Holy Grill. Somebody said yes. I said, okay, we can say yes. As some of you may know already, it began in 1987, and it feeds hungry folks in our Zion City area of Baton Rouge. They promote meals and healthy lifestyles and peace through partnerships with local congregations, through restaurants, the Greater Baton Rouge Food Bank, and others donors who provide hot meals for our guests 5 days a week. Volunteers are vital to their work. This church has been supportive of the Holy Grill's efforts in being some of the founders of the Holy Grill and supporting them for well over 30 years. Today, visitors, please feel no obligation to give. We at this church are working on our giving as a spiritual practice, extending our values into the community in yet another way. This morning's offering will be humbly accepted and shared in the same spirit. Please give as generously as you can. Will the ushers please come forward? Thank you. And remain seated as Nicole leads us in a hymn.
Blessed Spirit of my life, give me strength through stress and strife. Help me live with dignity. Let me know serenity. Fill me with a vision. Clear my mind of fear and confusion. When my thoughts flow restlessly, let peace find a home in me. Spirit of great mystery, hear the still small voice in me. Help me live my world less creed as I comfort those in need. Fill me with compassion, be the source of my intuition. And when life is done for me, let love be my legacy.
The good life. What is it about Christians who, despite professing themselves followers of Jesus Christ, himself the King of love, are yet capable of monstrous acts of hatred, intolerance, and even violence, all in the name of love? The evil and manifestly evil people can be attributed, as it usually is, to an absence of love and a subordination to Satan. They are said to lack the fundamental quality of love that marks those who know God, love God, and hence should love all of God's people. This, perhaps, we can understand in the perversions of a Hitler, a Stalin, or a Pol Pot, and the evil ascribed to Osama bin Laden, the genocidalists of Bosnia and Rwanda, and the abuses of the so-called heathen, wherever they are to be found across the pages of history and in the contemporary world. How, though, does one explain the perversions of good people, Christian believers, who in the name of love do hateful things?
So that picture that was up there was the Reverend Dr. Peter Gomes, and what do you want to tell us about him?
He was Harvard, and he led at Harvard. He was out as gay, and he was amazing.
Okay, he's been telling me that. I didn't even know all these things. What I do know is that that was the first book I bought, The Good Life, when I became a Unitarian Universalist. And I love it, and I could not wait to put it in this service. I find him to be excellent. My problem with evil. In the Devil Finds work, James Baldwin suggests that the premise of The Exorcist is a played-out distraction from what true evil actually looks like. As long as the devil is on the screen or similarly assigned elsewhere, those engaged in authentically devilish acts of deception, greed, violence, lying, and malicious redirection can skillfully direct responsibility for the problems they created and proliferated someplace other than themselves. Or worse, and this really is the worst, act as if nothing evil ever happened at all. And this is my problem with evil. The first time I saw the term CRT was in Tiger Droppings. Y'all ever read that? It's some foolishness. Dr. William Tate had just been appointed president of LSU, and I wanted to see how Baton Rouge was reacting to the news. In both Tiger Droppings and the local city newspaper, the term CRT and CRT hire kept popping up. I was like, what the heck is this? For the life of me, I could not figure out what that acronym meant, so I did what everybody else does. I Googled it, and I could not believe what I found. When I was in graduate school, critical race theory was simply an academic concept coined by Kimberly Crenshaw as a way of understanding how race has shaped public policy in America, and now her good and honest work, meant to enlighten, had been demonized into a coded language called CRT. When Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Nicole Hannah-Jones birthed the beginnings of the 1619 Project in the New York Times in 2019, and then had the audacity to publish a book-length anthology that expanded on her initial exploration into how slavery framed America's beginnings, literally all hell broke loose. Earlier this year, the author of Caste, The Origins of Our Discontents, Isabel Wilkerson, came to Baton Rouge, and she explained that she had received death threats upon the publication of her book. A book. So I wasn't surprised, though. Major attempts to silence Crenshaw, Hannah-Jones, Isabel Wilkerson, and anyone else that dares to present their historical and cultural understanding of America's foundations with an unflinchingly honest focus have been attacked. Their well-researched and delivered works are classified as divisive and silenced as much as possible. Is this what Baldwin meant? That is, these are the consequences of calling out a lie? In this way, dismissing CRT, or now DEI, or any counter-narratives or actions that shine light on our very complicated history, serves to prevent people from acknowledging, taking responsibility for, discussing, working through, and healing theirs and our past, all of our pasts. But it actually does not erase anything at all. The pain remains with us, roaming the earth, freely looking for something or someone to devour, whispering words of hate that inform how we see the world, each other, and ourselves. Not embracing who we have been and often still are prevents us from becoming who we can be. In fact, not staring this particular evil in the eyes serves to create what is often said to be the devil's greatest trick of all, and that is convincing the world that it does not exist.
All right, so right where you're seated, I want to invite everybody into a moment of, we're going to call this a musical meditation. And just get comfortable in your body, put your feet on the ground. Old people used to say in Mississippi, the devil is busy, you're giving him work. Now we're going to give y'all some work. Not really. Well, just to close your eyes, and we are going to sing this meditation. Feel free to join us, or feel free just to let it wash over you. But listen and really let it, as there's a comedian that says, now let that sizzle in your spirit. His name is Country Wayne, and just let this sizzle in your spirit. You gotta keep your heart wide open, though the waves wanna push you around. Oh, you gotta keep your heart wide open till your faith brings you back to solid ground. You gotta keep.
I'm gonna keep.
Your arms.
I'm gonna keep.
Wide
I'm
open.
gonna keep my arms wide open.
Though the way.
Though the waves
Wanna push
push
you around.
Though the waves wanna push you
Oh,
around.
you gotta keep.
I'm gonna keep.
Your arms.
I'm gonna keep.
Wide
I'm
open.
gonna keep my arms wide open.
Till your faith.
Till my faith
Brings you back.
brings me back.
To solid ground.
Till my faith brings me back to solid
You
ground.
gotta keep
Keep your eyes
your
open.
eyes
Your eyes
wide
open. Your eyes
open.
Keep your eyes
Though the
open.
way
Keep your eyes
wanna
open.
push
Keep your eyes
you
open.
around.
Keep your eyes open.
Push me
Oh, you gotta keep
Keep your eyes
your
open.
eyes
Keep your eyes
wide
open.
open.
eyes wide
open.
Till your faith
till the
Your
way
eyes
brings you
open.
back
Your eyes
solid
open.
ground.
till my
Your
faith
eyes
brings me
open.
back to
Keep
solid
your
ground.
eyes
Gotta
open.
keep
Keep
Gonna
your
keep
love
your
open.
love
Keep your love
wide
open.
open.
Your love
my
open.
love
Keep
wide
your love
Though the
open.
way
Your love
wanna
open.
push
Keep your love
you
open.
around.
Keep
Though
your
the waves
love
wanna
open.
push
Keep
me
your
Yeah, you
love
gotta
open.
keep
Keep
Gonna
your
keep
love
your
open.
love
Keep
Gonna
your
keep
love
wide
open.
open.
Your love
my
open.
love
Keep
wide
your love
Till your
open.
faith
till my
Your
faith
love
brings you
open.
back
Keep
brings
your
me back
love
solid
open.
ground.
till my faith brings me back to solid ground.
You gotta keep,
I'm gonna keep
your heart.
I'm gonna keep
wide
I'm
open.
gonna keep my heart wide
Go the
open.
way,
Though the waves
wanna push
push.
you around.
Though the waves wanna push me
Oh,
around.
you gotta keep
Gonna keep
your heart.
I'm gonna
your
keep
heart
wide
open.
open.
Gonna keep my
Your
heart wide
heart
Till
open
your faith,
till my faith
brings you back
brings
my
me back,
to solid ground.
till my faith brings me back to solid ground.
Thank you. Living by the word. I remember when I used to dismiss the bumper sticker, "Pray for Peace." I realize now that I did not understand it since I did not understand prayer, which I know now to be the active affirmation in the physical world of our inseparableness from the divine. And everything, especially the physical world, is divine. War will stop when we no longer praise it or give it any attention at all. Peace will come whenever and wherever it is sincerely invited. Love will overflow every sanctuary given it. Truth will grow where the fertilizer that nourishes it is also truth. Faith will be its own reward.
So Alice Walker writes that praying for peace is something that she came to understand as an answer to the ills of our world. She says that war will cease when we turn our attention away from hatred, which is the only plausible reason to engage in war, correct? And redirect it towards peace, love, truth, and faith. All of this sounds very religious to me. Although I am very clear about how God, Satan, and religion in general has been used to ensure domination, shame, and control, I don't find spiritual practices to be useless. In fact, like many people, unfairly burdened with the weight of an oppressed but triumphant cultural history, I find them to be necessary, though often hard to choose and even harder to follow. As a person with very little religious faith training, but significant appreciation for the rich culture that shaped me, even in my gratitude for finding a church such as ours, which I love, where I'm given the space to work out my spiritual path in my own time and on my own terms, I cannot divorce myself from some of the affirming beliefs and cultural aesthetics of the first path that I chose freely. And honestly, I don't think I should have to. And if we truly are who we say we are trying to be, all of us get to keep the good stuff too. Recently, two UU friends that I adore and love asked me two questions that kind of caught me off guard. One, in response to my decision to explore Satan as a sermon topic, asked with what looked to me like a hint of shock, "You don't really believe in hell, right?" No, I don't believe in hell. A hell as in a hell down there somewhere. I don't see the need for it, especially as a punishment for bad deeds upon death. We are fully capable of creating our own hells while we live. We really are. And the energies that some choose to call the devil have no home outside of the ones that we make for them. My other beloved UU friend asked, and I was really shocked about this, it just came out of nowhere, "You don't really believe in God, do you?" That was last year. And I was taken aback and provided no definitive response, but now I will. Yes, I do. With all of my heart, believe in and I'm grateful for whatever it is that keeps me striving to do good work for others, when and while I can, to forgive those who have hurt me the most, and to forgive and try to love myself when I have done the same to them, whether intentional or not. Before I gave my car away, I had a bumper sticker that read, "Love one another," with an exclamation point on it. My son took that off immediately. I'm just saying. And it was framed by the religious symbols from multiple faiths. That is, of course, an abbreviated reference to the core of Jesus' second commandment, which he pulled from his own Jewish faith, which was borrowed from even older spiritual paths. It was. The golden rule, Jesus' commandments, loving the divine with all of our hearts and loving our neighbors as ourselves, these things are hard, almost impossible at times. But hate, greed, lies, violence, and pain are the alternative, the perfect conditions for the devil to find work. So I say, pray, meditate, resist, always resist. And when the devil comes, as it most surely will, you'll tell that old lying enemy of love, I am a divine manifestation of the highest love. And I know that joy will always come back to me. So come on, y'all, let's sing. Let's sing.
Be ready. I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready when joy comes back to me. I've been downhearted. I've been downhearted. I've been downhearted. Won't be down for long, 'cause I wanna be ready. Yes, I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready when joy comes back to me. Too long crying, been too long crying, too long crying. I won't cry anymore, 'cause I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready when joy comes back to me, 'cause I felt tied to the ground, Lord. Tied to the ground, Lord. Tied to the ground, Lord. Get lighter every day, 'cause I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready when joy comes back to me. My spirit gets low, Lord. Hey! Spirit gets low, Lord. My spirit gets low, Lord. But I'm gonna rise again, 'cause I wanna be ready. Ha! I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready when joy comes back to me. I said, been surrounded by midnight. Been surrounded by midnight. Surrounded by midnight. The sun's gonna warm my face, 'cause I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready when joy comes back to me.
So I'm gonna end where I began with James Baldwin. If the concept of God has any validity or any use, it can only be to make us larger, freer, and more loving. So go forth this week, do your best work for yourselves so you can do the same for somebody else. Thank y'all. Love you. Amen.
'Cause I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready when joy comes back to me.